is Radio Bath. Radio Bath.
Welcome to Brave Business Conversation. My name is Cynthia Wiharja. As usual, your host until 2 p.m. Today, we've got just one special guest, and I think it's really worth the listen. He is a professional harpsichordist and forte pianist based in Bath, and he's traveled all over the world to perform his music. To me, he's a virtuoso, and I think this is a unique type of Brave Business Conversations because you don't typically think of artists in a business show. You know, you're thinking, oh, this isn't a music and culture show. But however, every single artist who markets their own talent, their own personality, and they market themselves. They are business people. They are self-employed business people. They may work through agents or different kinds of recording companies. However, their product is themselves. And if you think about it from a business perspective, you know, for instance, I'm in the furniture business. When you don't like my furniture, you don't like a thing that I sell. Sometimes I'm able to not take it personally. However, when you don't like an artist, you're basically telling them it is a very personal thing. You don't like their talent. So discussing business from the business angle of with any artist, I think is very interesting, is how do they get that mindset to be able to thrive in their industry, to become one of the best in their field and get over that mindset of, you know, not taking things too personally or having the discipline to practice to be the best at their game. So before I introduce you to Nathaniel Mander, who is sitting across from me in the studio, I'd like to introduce you to his music. So let's have a quick listen. That was a little excerpt from his concert. You can see it on YouTube. He's playing Bach, Goldberg variations. I have very, very limited knowledge of classical music. However, he's here to enlighten us. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you. Delighted to be here.
Oh, it's really delightful to have you here. I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about today. Tell us a bit about yourself, your background, how you got into this, and it's very interesting. We met because you pass by my shop all the time.
Yeah, you basically commented on my fashion sense. You like the way I dressed.
I thought you were born in the wrong century. I really did.
I've been told that so many times. Perhaps it's true. Yeah.
You're a very well-dressed person, and you have this thing about you. And then I found out from Patrick, the owner of Verdelat Cafe, that you had a harpsichord concert there.
Exactly. Yeah, on the 14th I'm playing 14th of May, which would be lovely. It's actually I'm going to be playing that same piece, the Goldberg Variations. They've been my real focus over the last 2 years. And I didn't know that the world was going to stop and the pandemic was going to happen, but I did actually manage to keep the project going. So it was planned to take place midway in between that awful period. And I had the recording booked, and it just coincided that it was in between two of the lockdowns.
And how long have you been playing the instrument, and why the harpsichord?
Oh, well, I started in my teenager. I started on the piano when I was about 8 or 9. And I've always loved classical music. I was brought up in a house where it wasn't predominantly classical music. We were listening to lots of music, but it was a very musical environment. There was always music playing. And so I just took naturally to classical music, and I've always loved it. And then my mum thought it would be a good idea for me to get piano lessons. My brother studied as well. And I had the most amazing piano teacher, one of those rarities she was just so inspiring. For a local, I'm from Gloucester originally. For a local piano teacher, she was London trained.
Amazing.
And just a real artist herself, actually. Totally out there, eccentric woman, but just instilled a love of classical music and nurtured that, and basically treated me and my brother like I've always found this with great artists that teach you, they treat you on the same level no matter how old you are. You know, when I moved to London, I had lessons with my most inspirational teacher, Carol Chirazi. You know, she's one of the greatest players in the world, and in my first lesson she sat down and treated me like I was just a fellow artist. And I think that's so important, and I try and
Instead of, and compare that to treating you like a child, for instance.
The kind of patronising, I'm the master and you're here to learn from me.
Right.
Because the thing with art is it's just a flow of energy. So if the ego gets involved, if there's too many blocks with personalities and things like that, then the music doesn't actually come across. So I got really lucky with those two teachers that were just really influential. Anyway, so I think I was having piano lessons, and I veered towards a lot of the earlier 18th century music, which I've always loved. And then one day, and I don't remember how it happened, I think I must have heard harpsichord on the radio or something, and then my life changed forever. And I just remember I was nagging my parents, and I was on eBay every day looking up, how can I buy one?
How can I buy a piano or harpsichord?
My parents were, they were humouring me, and I remember I found one in America, and I said, "Oh, it's only 300 quid, Dad. It'll be fine." I didn't get it, but by chance, my aunt was working in a bookshop in Cirencester, and my then teacher, who was going to be my teacher, Richard Lester, came in with a poster for an early music festival that he was hosting, and of course, my aunt said, "Well, my nephew's been
bugging everyone about harpsichords."
Yeah, can you imagine that this guy walks in? And so my mum got in touch with him, and I used to go every 2 weeks and have lessons, and it really started there. It was that.
Was it the sound, the difference between the piano and the harpsichord sound that you preferred?
I think so. I think
or was it the history, or
it was everything. I think it's such I always say it's like a time traveling instrument. When you hear it, you're just transported right back to the courts of the 17th, 18th century, and I love that.
True.
So I loved
that
everything
that
went with it, the aesthetic, because I remember looking up photos of them and just thinking, God, these are so beautiful. It's an arcane style, but I think that it still has, the music has so much to tell us still.
Yes, it's true. When you listen to piano, yes, you are transported back, but you're equally transported back to modern performances. However, when you listen to a harpsichord, immediately 18th century.
I love that.
Bath.
I know. It's a direct line.
Yes.
And I love that because I feel right at home there, and I love to share that.
That's
and
amazing.
Anything that transcends and takes you out of yourself.
And when I hear you play, and when I meet artists like yourselves, many of them say, "Oh, I started playing at 3. I woke up and got up my cot and just started playing." And it was like a little Mozart. But for you, it was a teenage thing, and was it hard work too, or was it just a natural thing?
Well, I think it's such a different instrument. It's a keyboard instrument like a piano, but it's such a different technique that you're basically starting from scratch. So in a way, it was good that I hadn't. But when I went to London to have those lessons, it was good that I didn't have too much piano training, that I didn't have to start completely from scratch. I mean, that I could start completely from scratch.
You didn't have the conditioning and the habits. Is it completely different? I mean,
it's totally different. So if I'd rolled out of my cot at 3 and had a Russian piano training, I wouldn't have been able to really be a harpsichordist because it's so ingrained in your fingers, that technique. So I was just,
You're still moldable.
I was very moldable then.
I never realized that. I know that some harpsichords are 2-tiered.
Yes.
But the pedal work and the size of the keys should be different. Should be the same, shouldn't it?
It's the size of the key is much smaller.
Oh,
the range is much smaller. There are no pedals, so it's all with finger.
Okay.
Everything is with the touch.
I see.
And that's what I love about it, actually, that you're really connected with the key.
True.
I mean, if you watch me play, you see I don't move very much because it's all from the finger. It's all
yes.
It's very physical in that way. I love that.
That's amazing. That. Yeah. Well, and you've got a concert coming up in London as well as you said in Bath as well. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So basically, I've got my recording of the Goldberg Variations. For those of you who don't know that piece, it's like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro for musicians. It's the pinnacle of it's one of the most difficult, one of the most spiritual pieces ever written.
All 40 minutes of it.
All 40 minutes of it, yeah.
That is one piece, yes.
Yeah, it's actually, there are repeats at the end of each section, and so if you do that, it's about an hour and 20.
My goodness.
So that's a long play, but it's about one of the most transcendental things you can do and see and hear. Actually, if you hear it as a whole, it's one of those pieces. It's got quite a famous reputation. A famous pianist, Glenn Gould, recorded it and gave it this kind of mystery and mystique. But the music itself is just, it's very hard to describe how sophisticated it is, as well as being very human.
Yes.
And for me, that's such a lovely combination when someone says something so powerfully.
Is it originally for harpsichord or
Originally
piano?
for harpsichord, yeah.
That's amazing. That makes it.
Yeah, exactly. And for 2 manuals, you have to have 2 manuals. He uses a technique where you're basically playing the hands at the same, crisscrossing,
Yeah, two
So-
manuals mean two tiers, two
Yeah,
levels.
2 tiers. Yeah,
That is the
exactly.
first performance I've ever seen with a two
yeah,
manual
yeah.
harpsichord. I've always thought, as I said to you
Mm.
before, I've always thought harpsichords only had one
No,
tier.
some of
That's
them
amazing.
do. It depends.
Yeah,
It was.
yeah. The 300-pound one probably was, you know,
Yeah,
but
that
this
was
was
only
slightly more
Yeah, I
expensive.
think I had about 10 keys, and half of them didn't work. So I'm glad I didn't get that.
That's great. We're going to talk more with you after the break. But again, I'm really looking forward to understanding your journey, not only as a musician, but also as a business person, you know, marketing your own music and your own personality. I'll be back with Brave Business Conversations after this. Welcome back to Brave Business Conversations. Still in the studio with Nathaniel Mander. We were just
Hi.
talking about the way you market yourself, right? Tell us more about that journey, that entrepreneurial journey you have to go through as an artist.
Yeah, it's a funny one because I don't think of myself as it's almost just happened. But I think that the key thing is that you find that thing that you love to do, and you throw yourself in it, and you devote yourself to it, and the rest kind of comes along the way. So
when you started playing, did you say to yourself or your parents or something, I want one day to do this professionally?
Yeah, but it's always been about the music. So it was always, I love doing this. I love playing this. I want to share this. I want to do this. If I can. I remember when I auditioned to study it in London at the Royal Academy of Music, beforehand I just thought, I would love this opportunity because I really want to give it a shot. I didn't know what that meant. I actually didn't have a very strong vision in that way. I think I've gone with the flow of it, really.
Present in
I've
everything.
been very present with it because I think but you can do that with music because your heart's in it, so you're loving it and you're thinking, God. But I mean, don't get me wrong, it's been hell of an up and down along the way.
What's the up and down?
Oh, it's a nightmare career because you're going from ecstatic highs and periods of like great success and celebration, and then you might have like a month off, and you've got to prepare for something, and you've got to psychologically kind of drag yourself up off the floor from that high.
But what's the high? Was it the applause and the recognition that gives you the high, or what gives you that high?
A huge sense of self-achievement when you perform, especially a piece like the Goldbergs. You think, God, I've faced that, I've done that. The constant changes of environments. So I'm always meeting new people, which I love. I'm a very sentimental person, so I get attached to people, and then I have to say goodbye. I get very sad.
No.
So it's a constant, But the thing is that I don't think I could do it if I wasn't as emotional a person like that. So
That's
I've
true, because you have
accepted
to
it now.
feel that.
Yeah. If I was stone cold and just going through it, I don't think I would be playing as I do. But no, that's another thing that and often musicians talk about that because you might spend 2 weeks with someone in an intense environment or with a group of people, and you bond, and then it's all split up, and so that's there's not one day is the same.
So is it hard for you when you're preparing because you're alone
That's very
most
hard.
of the time, or with your teacher perhaps?
Yeah, no. This at the moment it's been a lot alone time at the moment because I've got these concerts coming up, and it's a difficult piece of music, so I've had to just do that. But my God, I'm blessed at the moment because I feel very inspired. So I've had periods where you have to literally drag yourself through it, and because you have to practice it. But I feel quite good at the moment. Although 2 weeks ago it was pretty hard.
Terrible.
But it's not. I was talking to another artist friend of mine. I said, what we're asked to do as artists is basically put yourself in a state of the worst case of mental health in order to make something beautiful. You're asked to isolate yourself from society, focus only on yourself, not really sit still long periods of time. So, you've got to find ways of managing that. But I think for me, it's that acceptance of, okay, that's part of it. But the end result is so beautiful and so lovely.
I love what you said about it's accepting it.
Yeah, acceptance,
and accepting that I am an emotional person or a sentimental person. That's what makes me good. But it comes with the roller coasters as well. Sometimes I think people just want the good part of it, and then they can't stand the bad part of it.
I know. That's a relatively new thing I'm getting to grips with at the moment. My mum's been very helpful at advising me on that. She's a very artistic woman. She's wonderful. She basically wanted to be a mum. So I feel like as the way we
was she an
brought up,
artist as well?
She is an artist. She's an amazing, talented drawer, but she didn't pursue it. She wanted to have kids, and so she let us. There are 3 of us. I've got an older brother and younger sister. She let us kind of be free, and my dad's amazingly supportive in like a kind of very stable way. Which again, I think but actually, the other thing that's so important about doing this is having that support behind you.
So let's talk about parenting an artist. Not that you have kids of your own,
No, I
but
don't, no, I
lots
don't.
of listeners out there, or perhaps if you're listening to the recording later, you are parents, and your kids are artistic, and you're probably thinking, "Oh my God, how are they going to make a living?" Right? Or how
God,
they
yeah,
should
yeah.
they should do into this. Or some parents are like, I know that. I always tell people if I could do it all over again, I'd go into either history or music.
Yeah.
However, it was an expectation that I would go into business.
Yeah, okay.
You know, which at the end I loved it and I excelled it and
Yeah.
everything like that, which is fine. It
Yeah.
gave me a different adventure. However, that's also why I've gone back into an industry with history, because I want to get to know myself in that natural way. But let's say, what's your tips and what did your parents do right? Let's say. I know they're
They do-
listening
I
as
know,
well,
I
aren't
think
they?
they are. Hi, Mum and Dad.
Let's score some brownie points.
Yeah, no, they've done loads right. They've done loads right.
Maybe another harpsichord is coming your way.
They let us all express ourselves as we wanted to, and were there as the supportive roles to allow that to kind of take place. And I feel that's so important. I mean, there's definitely parents are always going to worry about their kids and be preoccupied.
Do you
about
think they were worried about
Oh
you?
God, I know they do. Yeah, they do worry. We're very
Worried about what, though?
Well,
I mean,
think every parent-
you showed talent right away.
No, I
probably.
suppose supporting yourself. All these things. I think that's a natural. It's a natural thing for a parent to. What the hell's my kid going to do?
Or if you're going to go into show business or anything like
Yeah,
that, what's the
exactly.
environment you're going to be surrounding yourself
Yeah,
with?
yeah.
Da 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 da.
But they
Yeah.
didn't let it out too much, which I think was the other key. That I felt really supported in that way. And they let us lead the route of what we wanted to do.
But was there discipline? Because there's another angle of it. Yeah, you allow your kids to do anything they want, and then there's no reins, and then they end up messed up. You know, I mean, what was the balance? Did you feel any balance? We should have your mom and dad on the show.
Oh, we should. No, they're good role models. I'm sure in lots of ways, yes, but not in terms of expressing myself musically. Because I've always feel lucky. My parents never had to say to me, "Oh, practice." I just did it. I wanted to do it.
Maybe
Whereas
that was their way of
I think
testing
that's-
whether or not you
yeah.
actually liked it. If you had
Yeah.
to be disciplined into practicing, we'd have the conversation about that. You know.
quite. So yeah, just very easy going about that. But providing a feeling always of being very supported. I think that's key.
Did you have?
Feeling.
Did they ask you to do a backup career? Like, okay, go into music, but then, as a backup, why don't you do accounting?
No, because
No?
they know I would have run a million miles. They didn't know.
No,
Yeah,
they just let it go. Yeah, that's great.
I'm quite steadfast in my when I make a decision. I just like to go for it. So
Oh, that's great.
yeah, but no, I feel it's been a lovely journey with that, and I feel very grateful. Also lucky that they were. I know lots of musicians whose parents were musicians themselves, and I think that adds an extra element of pressure, which again I didn't have. Anything that means you can
Oh,
keep
I
it
see.
pure, do you see?
Yeah. Yeah, if I did great, I want you to do great as
Yeah.
well. Oh, yeah, that's
And
terrible.
also that
Yeah.
living through the vicarious thing. I don't know if I had that. I'll ask them later.
And how do you manage the privacy part of it? What's family life and what's public life?
Yeah, I'm good at that. I'm good at that because the person who comes out to do all the shows and everything is it's a big personality. And I love to dress up and I love all these things and I love escaping to the 18th century. But that's part of my artistic soul, and it's almost a way of protecting it.
Yes.
So that then I can be myself and that side of that. But there's definitely crossovers between them. But I definitely feel like there are two sides to me. I think a lot of musicians feel that.
I only see the 18th century side, so I'm not sure about the other side.
I'm doing well with the private side.
You're doing very, very well. We'll be back with more Nathaniel Mander after this.
Made locally in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
Welcome back to Brave Business Conversations, still with Nathaniel Mander. I want to play this piece that you sent me, a Schubert.
Lovely.
Yeah, on piano.
Yeah, it's an original 1820s piano.
Tell me more about that before we play it.
Yeah, well, the piece is special to me because this was the piece that, remember that first piano teacher I was talking about?
Yes.
Well, one of the striking memories in my life is hearing her play it in her front room on her piano. In the sun was streaming in, and she played this piece, and it changed my life forever.
I absolutely love it. We'll just give the listeners a brief cut on it. But if you just Google Nathaniel Mander piano, I mean, there you have it. See, I got to stop myself, or else I'll be just
Yeah, it's
listening to
lovely.
that.
Very
That is
haunting.
amazing. And tell us about the location of that video.
Oh, lovely! In a place called Restoration House in Rochester, and the owners there have it's an Elizabethan manor, and the owners have recreated it in the most in an authentic style. They're just mad on the aesthetic of that, and so when you walk in, you literally you leave the real world behind. It's quite nice actually,
It is nice.
and then you come. Then when you leave again, you have a
Like, oh, hello.
You have a real smash going back to the real world. Yeah, but it's part of what I was talking about earlier. That there's these constant toings and froings between reality and not. So
Yeah.
I'm
What
good.
What is it that, I mean, when I see you play, you're totally immersed in the music, but you don't forget the camera. You smile at it. You
Yeah.
connect with us
Yeah.
who is
Yeah,
watching it.
Yeah.
That must be quite difficult, because some performers, they find it difficult to think of the audience and balance it with think about their art. How do you
Yeah.
balance that? How do you perform well?
Yeah, for me actually, maybe I'm unusual in that way. That I actually really like to know that people are connecting. I like to make it as approachable as possible, because I think that no matter how wonderful and inspiring an idea is, no matter what it is, you've got to give people if they're not used to it, a helping hand to appreciate it. Otherwise, it's in vain. So yeah, on that video I did, the camera guy was quite avant-garde. He said, "Oh, can we try out some new techniques?" I mean, most people wouldn't touch that with the barge pole, but he said, "Oh, basically look into the camera when I'm doing this," but it was all very natural. We did it in one take. There's no edits on it. And yeah, someone said to me, I should use it as one of my dating profile videos. Because I look lovingly into the camera.
You
playing
actually look
Schubert.
very
Yeah.
good in that, ladies or whatever you're into. It's candlelit, totally just absolutely, and you're not wearing a suit or anything.
No,
You're very
no.
casual.
Quite casual, yeah.
And
I changed that
it's
last
just
minute,
manual.
actually. I chose quite a formal outfit for that, and then I thought, this isn't right.
Yeah.
And
No,
I
yeah. No,
stripped down to
absolutely.
the shirt,
Everything is really cool. And everything is candlelit. There's no,
Yeah.
is it all candlelit?
Yeah, and the concerts sometimes are as well, completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing. Credit to your camera
Thank
guy
you,
as
thank
well.
you. No,
I
it
think
was really
he
special, actually.
or she was very good. But when anyone in business, especially if they're marketing themselves, self-employed people, coaches, consultants, even business owners who own businesses and who are operated by teams, there's this balance between ego and audience, right? Ego and the market, thinking too much about yourself and serving or sharing your talent with other people. How do you? Tell me a little bit about that, because I know you've got a thought about
Yeah,
that, and I think that's very interesting.
Well, I think the key is to have that inspirational thing that's much more important than you to focus on. So generally for me, it tends to be the piece of music I'm playing or the instrument I'm playing, something that you can lose yourself into that is in that moment is more important than you. So then you're just like a vessel, you're a free vessel. You put all the hard work in, but then when it comes down to it, you're just letting it free. It's a kind of it's a flow.
When you first started, did you get nervous? Did you get all that? And
Actually,
what
no.
changed?
I tell you what, it's the opposite. I did used to it. And I remember I had a period when I was in London at the Academy, and I was doing so many concerts. I must have been performing twice a week, and I wasn't getting nervous. And actually, it wasn't a very happy time in my life, because I was doing so much, and it became too normal. Actually, and then you come out of that. So it's an unrealistic, lifestyle. And then you start to appreciate how special each performance is again. And because I think you do need some amount of nerves. It had literally gotten to the point where I was like, okay, next concert, just walking on stage.
Actually, you're right.
That's
if you don't
horrible.
have a bit
Yeah.
of nerves,
Yeah.
then it's the other way around,
Yeah.
isn't it? You don't perform
Yeah.
well because you're bored.
Exactly. So now I'm definitely the other way, much more the other way. But it's been 2 years of not performing, so I feel like...
Oh, was that COVID?
Yeah. And in a couple of months' time, I'm spending the summer in Paris. We're doing lots of shows out there in the Palais Garnier at the Opera House. And by that time, I'll be definitely back in my metal with it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the real issue with performing is if you've got a big gap. So
The flow
yeah,
gets terminated
it
somewhat.
really does, and you feel like you're coming on stage for the first time again. So when you've got quite a few, it's quite nice. But again, this is again that can be difficult about the career, that it is always up and down with that. So just finding ways to manage it. But I still love it.
But it's interesting, and this is why, it's funny when I asked you to be on a business show, you're like, what?
I know.
What? And
I'm
then
an
you
artist.
post it on your Instagram. I'm on a business show. Ha ha ha, But,
No, I didn't.
but the relevance of what you're saying right now to people who
that's
market
nice to know.
themselves, it's just because as I said before in the break, I train coaches on public speaking or on just marketing themselves. And the hurdle, the first hurdle you got to get into is that thing you just said. You've got to have something that you can just be a vessel for, that you're so inspired by this. It's not because you're great. It's not because you're so amazing, but it's because you are so inspired by this topic or this product or this business that you can just do it, and you love sharing it. You always use the word share. I don't know. I always pick up on that. She always says, I love to share this.
I do.
And people say, I love to do it. People say, I love it. But hardly anyone says, I love to share it. And you always use the word share whenever you're describing your art.
Well, I think it's a communal thing. You are in a concert. You're communing. You're all communing together. Generally, for me, we're all communing with this great work of art. And it's what I love afterwards. And if people come up and you hear their personal appreciations of certain bits, that's what I really get off on, actually.
Well, yeah, and then again, when people can get over this whole thing about thinking about themselves, or doing it for money, or doing it for fame, or something like that, then that gets in the way of the art, I find. Yeah, because I think for me, I've always told people that business was my art.
Yeah.
I mean, I am an artist in a way that I allow myself to be a vessel whenever I'm on stage and speaking about different topics. And you have described it perfectly. That says, get immersed in it and just be a vessel. I always said, be a messenger. Samey, right? I wonder, however, but you're sharing like Schubert, you're sharing Bach. What if it were a piece that you wrote yourself? Have you ever written anything, and does it feel different when you're performing your own?
I'm not a composer. My brother's actually a composer. He's a wonderful composer, but I definitely prefer performing. And I have written bits. I would write it in the style, but there's something about 18th century music which is very different to 19th, 20th century in that the element of flexibility for the performer is massive. So when I perform a piece like the Bach, the performer is expected as you go along to embellish and improvise in the moment. This is why I love 18th century music, because what's on the page it's not all you play. So there's an element
see.
oh gosh, yeah, you're creating it in the moment.
I see. I was wondering because I see you just with those 2-3 sheets of paper in front, and you're playing something that I would have thought would have taken at least 15 pages.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of improvisation. It's like classical jazz, isn't it?
18th century music is. Any great 70s disco song has its foundation in 17th century Italian music. All of the sequences come from there. Really,
so if you think you don't like classical music,
exactly.
think again. You've been listening to that.
Vivaldi wrote it first. Really, these
True.
sequences, it's wonderful. I've got a friend who loves disco music, and I just always say to him, "Oh, you can find that in this concerto."
And that just ooh.
It had to come from somewhere, didn't it?
It had to. I mean, all musical things come from somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll be back just to wrap up this end of the segment, but Nathaniel's still with us for another hour after the news hour. We'll be back with Nathaniel Mander after this.
Made locally in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
Welcome back. Still with Nathaniel Mander. We're just talking about Bridgerton.
We are. I love it. Guilty pleasure.
I mean, people in the industry, in the antique industry, just like, oh my God, that is the most inaccurate show ever. However, I absolutely binge on it. Do you?
I do.
Yeah.
I don't mind that it's inaccurate because it's so lovely.
Yeah.
And they all look gorgeous. So what more do you want?
There's parts of it. I like the way they use modern touches. Like, you enter the ball, Material Girl is coming up, as a music, but they do it up in orchestra. And I think that's nice.
It's really effective. I love mixing the old and the new. I think that's actually the key, to have little touches. Mm-hmm. When I dress for concerts, I have little touches that go back to the 18th century, but I wouldn't dress in period costume.
Yes.
I wouldn't find that enjoyable at all.
No,
so I'd rather have
you can't move either.
Yeah. No, I can't move. Well, you know what the thing is? I don't know how they played back then because of the huge cuffs.
Yeah.
It's really impractical, and yet this was the fashion.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know if anyone knows back in the 18th century.
How do you move
How
around
did
in
you
them?
do that?
You know, in our shop, we have 18th century chairs. Many of them are very comfortable because they're quite big. And I always wonder, is it because of all the dresses and everything that the jackets and everything that they wear, that they have to
Yeah.
be so huge, you
Yeah.
know? Or maybe they had huge bums or something like that back then.
They did eat a lot.
They did eat a
Oh my
lot.
God.
Yes, yes. That was a sign of wealth.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, what do you do in your, do you have any other interests aside from
yeah.
music and everything? What do you do in your spare time?
Oh, I love being with friends and family. I love being around people. I'm a very sociable person, so just hanging out. And I go to London often for work, but while I'm there, I always see my friends.
And are they all artists or are they all in the
a
industry?
mix. I mean, when I see my musician friends, we don't really talk about music. We talk about life. See, I like people who find life a similar kind of, I was going to say struggle. You know, people who...
It's that melancholy side coming out again, isn't
like
it?
a sensitivity to it. I just get on with people like that, because then you can connect over that.
Yes.
So it's about the personality, I think, but they just tend to be musicians or whatnot. Yeah, I love having a good time. I really do.
Do you have, I mean, you play very well and everything, but many people in the industry do. What's your unique selling point?
Oh, God, I don't know. Do you know what? I really think luck is so much.
You're the lucky one.
Well, I think luck has a huge factor in so
Okay.
much of this. Like, people always say, oh, it's you work hard and this, but there's just certain opportunities that just come about and you're in the right place. And I think it's actually really important to remember that so that you don't get too carried away. I always go back to, I've been really lucky. You know, the fact I had the right teacher, the fact I was in the right place to experience that. I met the right people. Because I suppose I could have had
You were born in the right family.
born in the right yeah. So that's really, again, it keeps anything that keeps you a bit distance from it.
Keeping a bit distance from that ego again.
Yeah. If you can look at it from the outside and not a kind of lightness, I think that's really important.
And that will keep you from...
Getting too heavy with it, getting too self-involved with it.
And when rejection comes, that also makes it easier.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, it still bloody hurts, but it's we all have our coping mechanisms, don't we?
I think we need a new meditation, you know, like a podcast or whatever by Nathaniel Mander called Luck.
Yeah, exactly. Keep going, it'll all work out.
It'll all work out.
Being grateful, I think. Being really grateful for the things you've managed to achieve and done.
Yeah.
Support's a huge thing behind it.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can't do any of this without it's that understanding.
It's that understanding that it's not only you.
No.
That you're just a vessel, but you're also a vessel of opportunity.
Yeah.
If you didn't have opportunity, there'd be nothing vesseling out of you.
No.
If you didn't have training by the right
Yeah.
teacher and upbringing by the right parents, you wouldn't be such a great vessel. So it's not just about you.
No, God, no.
And therefore, when things don't work out, it's also not just about you.
Yeah. We're all connected in that way, aren't we?
Yeah, there's all this equation. And I think that's the thing. I've got nieces also, a couple of nephews as well, that struggle, especially with the social media craze and everything is about
God,
a selfie.
don't get me started on that.
Yeah, well, you do have to follow Nathaniel's Instagram. It's like a concert every single day, though. And you talk to us like, and this is, I was inspired to make Mozart today. Da, 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 da. But it is absolutely brilliant.
Thanks,
I use it to get up, you know, to just have a nice, refreshing morning
you. That
time and
means a
everything.
lot. Yeah.
But it's absolutely well done. But yeah, having that ability to distance yourself from your abilities, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah,
just
definitely.
To keep it grounded.
I'm not a very grounded person at all. I think this is why I also like I'm very close to my family, because they are very grounded, and friends as well, because you can get so easily lost in the clouds with all this. And
yeah, do they just get over yourself?
Yeah, exactly. Humor's
I changed your
good,
nappies for goodness sake.
Exactly. Get back down to earth.
Get back down to earth.
You need both. You really need both, Cynthia.
We do, and we'll talk more after the news hour. But you know, it's fantastic. I've learned so much just in this first hour. I can't wait until the next one. I'll be back with Brave Business Conversations after the news hour at 1:00. Still with Brave Business Conversation with Nathaniel Mander. Now, this is a exquisite piece, and you're playing in Bath soon, aren't you?
In Bath.
Yes.
Yeah, on the 14th at Berdelat.
At Berdelat Margaret's buildings.
Yeah, that lovely design shop, cafe.
Yes.
Have you been?
Yeah, of course.
It's wonderful,
That's my
isn't it?
neighbor.
Yeah, I know it is. Isn't it?
And they've started actually a wine
Wine
evening, wine and cheese type of thing.
Mm.
It's wonderful. The service is always very good. The
Yeah.
environment is fantastic.
It's a really special place, actually. It's like no other place in Bath.
Yeah, I think so. I think
Isn't it?
Patrick and Neri definitely does a fantastic job, and of
Yeah.
course with their team, kudos
Yeah,
to them.
definitely.
So what are you doing though? What's the night all about? Is it just you, or is it a compilation of things?
Well, it started out actually. Patrick said to me, "Would I play some music for one of his art classes?" And I thought, "Wow, I'd love that. I'd love to see how a group of artists would interpret the music I was playing." And then he said, well, "What will you play?" And I said, "Well, actually, I've got my new CD coming out, the Goldberg Variations. I'm playing it a lot at the moment." And he says, "Well, actually, he loves that piece of music too. He's a really, wasn't it mad? I live around the corner, and he loves harpsichords." And so he said, "Well, come and perform it." So on the 14th of the night, I'll be playing the Goldberg Variations with my own harpsichord. He's going to drive up, and we'll sling it in the back of his car. I know. They do move. They're actually much more portable. You couldn't.
But
really move
you
them.
have to tune them again when you.
Tune
yeah?
it. I've got a friend, I think, coming who's doing that. Actually, that's a good point. I need to arrange that. I can do it, but it's not so nice to do for a concert.
Yeah.
And then on
that's
the
good.
Sunday, then I will leave it in there. And then on the Sunday, I'll play for this art class.
That's amazing.
But no, I don't play very much locally. The Holborn I occasionally play at, and they've got that lovely old piano. Talking of old pianos,
So on the second floor then.
yeah, it's a 1790s. That's really my period. To have a piano like that, they were so finely made, so elegant. You see, this is the thing that I love about older instruments, is that there's a delicacy and a finesse that you get with them, a lightness.
Yes.
Not to say that it's emotionally, it's always still very profound. I always feel like, through the ages, the styles have changed, but the kind of things people have wanted to express don't change.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's just to do with what the aesthetic is.
I used to volunteer at the Holborn, and we get nervous every time people play on that piano. We ended up putting a sign.
It's original.
We've ended
it's
up putting a sign. Please do not touch. Because
Right
like
at the
bing, bing,
barrel.
bing, like who's playing the piano? Yeah. That it's also like when you're touching the keys and everything. Do you get this moment of like, oh my God, who's played on this?
Yeah. And I've played loads of old instruments. Been really
And I
lucky
believe
to do
they've got a harpsichord, don't they?
Where?
In the
that.
Holborn.
Yeah, no, in Berdelat.
No, in Berdelat, but
Oh.
also in the Holborn. Maybe
Maybe they did.
different
I
museum.
haven't
I'm
seen
not sure.
Oh, the Royal Crescent, the number 1 Royal Crescent.
Oh, that's
have a
right.
harpsichord, yeah.
Yes.
And again, another original one. Yeah, the all the English instruments from that period survive,
Yeah.
but all the French ones, which would have been the most magnificent things in the world, were burnt in the
Oh, the French
storming of Bastille.
Revolution.
Yeah, can you imagine? I know. I still haven't gotten over that.
No. But then
But, yeah.
again, Oxford, I was just in Oxford speaking about history getting burned. The library in Oxford, the major, I can't remember what it's called, Budelan Library.
Oh,
They
yeah.
burned all the books in the
God.
library during Henry VIII's time, when he overnight basically converted the country from Catholicism to Anglican or to Church of England, and basically none of the books were now relevant. None of the Bibles were all relevant, and they just burned it.
Such destruction. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, it is amazing. So how do you, you're someone who lives in two worlds. Every time I see you, like, that's the guy that was born in the wrong century.
I live in my own little
Do you
planet, I think.
compare? What do you compare and learn from different
Yeah.
eras?
Oh God, yeah.
What are some of the things you liked about the old era, and what are some of the things you like about modern times?
I think it would have been unbearably formulaic, actually, society. But the bits that were good about it were the gentility and manners, and I think that's a lovely the respect. Because we used to bow,
Yes.
to greet someone. That's such a lovely, respectful thing to do to someone.
Yeah.
To say, but it would have been. I think it would have been very formalised. It wouldn't have been very natural. I love the fact that nowadays we've got a much more emotionally expressive way of chatting to other people.
Yeah.
But I think I just love anything that's because my whole ethos is about doing things with care. Anything that you do with love. So like the way you prepare a piece of music, or this is why I love old instruments. Someone's put their life into that. And that's just an inspirational thought. You know, you've got a choice in life, haven't you? Of every day, am I gonna put my heart into this, or am I gonna follow a different route? And you know, we can all be very destructive easily, can't we?
Yes.
I always think it's a much more difficult choice to be nicer. It requires much more bravery.
It's like this disposable culture, though. As things get easily more manufactured, sold cheaper, less valued, easily thrown away.
I know.
Same with relationships. Back in the days when just to be able to touch someone's hand was something, just to be able to see someone, meet someone was something, whereas now everybody's on social media and you can basically kind of meet them on a regular basis. Relationships were maybe more valuable back then, more highly regarded, whereas now it may be a bit more disposable.
Definitely, but I think the thing that it teaches us always in all of this field is where the people are and the things are that really do matter to us, because there's no replacement for a really healthy, genuine relationship with someone.
Is that what really matters to you? If you think of what really matters to you.
Yeah, it goes back to people. You know, people, I am an artist, but I love people. I love getting to know people and understanding people.
I sense that.
I really do. I'm obsessed.
Yeah, no, when you walk past, I think you had to walk past twice before I said, "How are you, Nathaniel Mander?"
I know, it's lovely. You said, "You Nathaniel Mander."
I'm like, "Hello." I said, I didn't know what your last name was. I think, "Are you Nathaniel?"
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was expecting a bit of an artist ego, a bit of a standoffishness, a bit of, whatever. And then you were just so warm and welcoming and blah, blah, blah. And that really says a lot. And I think that's probably expressed when you become a vessel for your music.
Yeah, about love. Yeah, I was brought up like that. My mum's a very warm woman, incredibly. She's a real inspiration to me. She's very loving. And I think that just you pass it on, don't you, in the world? And then you inspire the people to keep that going.
Fantastic.
But we need it right now, I think.
I think we definitely need it.
Yeah, we need this gentleness and we need these.
We need this global hug.
Yeah, we do.
Right. Well, we'll be back with more chats. I do want to get your thoughts about social media.
Sure.
And I want to know what you're doing in Paris. We all do. We all want to go there with you, actually.
A lot of people are, actually. It's really sweet. People have been saying, I'm coming to Paris for the week.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll be back with more Nathaniel Mander and his music after this.
Radio made in Bath. This is Radio Bath.
Conversation, still with Brave Business Conversation and Nathaniel Mander here. Can't get over your music.
Oh, thank you. It's so glassy, the sound of that piano.
Yeah.
Such a different sound to a modern piano.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, my ears are not that well trained.
It's much, I just think glassy, lighter, more transparent. I love that. Really love that.
I'm sure. Well, your fingers just float through it like nothing.
You have to be very relaxed to play these older instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. Well, we were talking about the basics of good musician when, many people learn to play or learn their art, whatever, but because they don't have the right grounding, the right basics, they're never as good as the masters. What do you think is the basics that you need to do or you need to know to be a great musician?
Yeah, it goes along with the kind of the life journey of being a musician, and that you're constantly learning with it. But I think that it's so easy in music to just approach it on a very surface level, because you're working with lovely materials. It's such attractive music. You can just sit there and go, "Gosh, isn't this lovely?" and just play it. There's a whole other world of understanding of harmony and historic elements and knowing about the composers. That for me, I think it's just really fundamental, actually, to mastering your craft. So I had great teaching in London, harmonic teaching about understanding, because I always like to understand. And if you can really get to the heart of a piece of music, then you're not just playing blind. You're not just sat there playing. There's that element as well when you perform. But to get to that point, you have to have devoured it, and you've got to have taken it apart, and you've got to analysed it. I love doing that. But so So that I feel that's something that's not very fashionable in our society. This idea of developing skill, like you're saying.
I think it's basic. It's almost like if you're going to read a poem from a poet, you've got to understand what is his or her psychology when they wrote it, right? Or I used to dabble in high school theater, for instance. You can't just read the line. You've got to understand what is the context. And I would think that if you are playing someone's music, when did they write it? At what phase in their life? What were they going through? Is that pretty much, yeah?
Yeah, it's so important to know that. And also that you derive a lot of inspiration from that. So
I think it's also challenging to go back to yourself, though. If you are representing someone in a way that you are playing Bach's music and you are transporting yourself, and then going back to the 21st century Nathaniel.
Yeah, I know.
It takes a bit of a shake-up, doesn't it? Like,
you just do it so often. You're just doing it.
You just do it.
It's not a conscious decision. It's just part of it. But anything that gives you inspiration. Because you have times where it's. Really
how do you get inspired? What's your routine?
Things like this. So delving into the world, and this was what really sparked my enthusiasm. When I was 14, because I started looking up like images of them, and then you suddenly get delved into that glorious color world and the shapes and the aesthetic and the it's so vivid. So things like that for me really help. Talking to other people about it.
Yeah,
I'm really close with my brother. He's also a musician. I love talking to him about music. That really fires me up.
Yeah,
it's so
true.
Nice when you share that and you just spark those ideas off.
That's true.
That is really electric.
Are you doing the same piece in Paris?
No, Paris I'm playing at the Opera House.
Yes.
Palais Garnier, and we're putting on a production of an 18th century opera by a composer called Rameau. And it's basically an opera about a frog.
Oh, right.
It's
perfect country for it.
Perfect. I haven't said that yet, actually. It's
the Grand Nuit.
A mythological water nymph, basically a frog, who, it's a comedy, the opera, and throughout the opera she gets teased and convinced that Jupiter, the god, is in love with her, and they stage a fake marriage and at her expense. It's quite twisted, but it's very 18th century. It's very off the wall.
It's not off Greek mythology of anything?
It would have been classical.
Yes.
Yeah, classical
that's
origin.
fantastic.
But it's really zany. The 18th century is so out there. When you really get to the heart of it, it's very, very far removed actually from anything we know now. It's really off the wall. I love that. I can only actually take so much of it if you really go into that. But the music's quite pure in that way. Actually, it's not too over the top. But if you were to really go back, it would be quite frightening.
And is the bass mostly harpsichord for that, or do you switch with piano as well?
There'll be a big orchestra. There's a dance troupe because there's ballets during opera. Singers, cast of singers. It's a big cast actually.
I'm sure.
Conductor,
yeah.
There's going to be two harpsichordists. So
but no piano.
No piano. No.
Oh wow.
They used to actually have the harpsichords on the stage.
Yes.
In the 18th century.
I see.
Because you're accompanying the singers alone often, so it was really practical to do that.
Yeah.
Which I like.
That's really nice. So it's part of the thing. I was also on Spotify. You've got certain collaborations with different artists like Irlandia or there's a couple of other things. Feel free to mention that. What do you do?
My dear friend Karina Drury, she's an amazing cellist. We were at music college together, and she's researched a lot of Irish 18th century music. We're doing a new recording actually to follow on from that album in July, which should be nice. But she's actually someone that I can really connect to in that way, in that very understanding, deep way. She's a very sensitive person and a lovely player.
That's fantastic.
It's nice doing that, actually. It's nice.
Do you know any logical musicians that are a bit...
I think I'd be frightened
Maybe.
of them. I probably what I need in my life.
Wrong industry.
Yeah, I know. This is what I'm missing. Floating around.
I think you're doing quite well.
Thank you.
And so are you doing your own recording then? Soon?
Yes.
You're doing all these shows and everything. Is it a pre-launch to something? Are you doing something? I know maybe you're not allowed to say, but I'm going to ask anyway because now you're on the spot. But are you doing anything cool in the future for you?
Things coming up. Gosh, what's coming up? Actually, I've got some really nice is it September? I can't remember. End of September, I'm doing some Mozart piano concertos. with, again, a group, a consonne quartet, a string quartet, and we're collaborating. I've been friends with the violinist of that quartet for forever as well. That's really exciting me because I'm going to be improvising. You know, we were talking earlier about embellishing and improvising.
Mm-hmm.
There's a moment in the Mozart piano concerto towards the end, after the lovely divine music, where basically the spotlight turns to the pianist on their own. And Mozart, when he played it, would have just sat there and played whatever came to his mind based on the piece.
And you're going to do that?
I'm going to do it.
Oh,
yeah, I'm
wow.
going to try it. So I basically spent lockdown playing Mozart piano concertos and, you know, devouring the harmonic language to try and do it. It's difficult. I don't know whether it comes to it. I think I will actually. But so you see, there's that. Music back then was so much more ephemeral. You know, you might have only heard one piece once in your lifetime of that piece. You wouldn't hear it again. It's not like now you can keep repeating it. You know, that experience would have been so special.
Well, I remember when I was taking my musicology course, the transposition between one key to the next, it was almost, you couldn't hear it. You couldn't hear it. Everything was so smooth. You know, we're here now in modern music, you go boom, pause, and then it goes to the next key or something. You can definitely hear.
I know.
But not in classical music. It's almost like a little journey up and down a hill, and you don't know where you are, but you're just there. You're suddenly at the end of it. You know,
Definitely.
so I think it's fantastic. No, it's fantastic. I do want to talk to you about your Instagram. You do that yourself,
Yeah, I
right?
do.
Are we going to see that improvisation practice
I
that
might
you're
do
doing?
something on that, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing that, actually. I haven't done it yet. I've got to be in the right mood.
Yeah. So for listeners out there, if you follow Nathaniel Mander, you will have a daily Instagram concert. Harpsichord
Very
mostly.
mini. I like the fact
Mini.
it's mini.
Yeah, I think it's like 3-5 minutes, but sometimes you do a bit longer.
Sometimes I do longer.
Yeah. And then first he might just play. The background's always fantastic. And sometimes he will introduce what he's playing. So I think that's fantastic as well. So definitely. Do you go on social media a lot? Do you engage a lot? Is this a big part of your life as an artist?
Not massively. I do a bit. I like Instagram because you can really dip in and out. And I started it actually during lockdown as a kind of means to keep sane.
Keep
And
saying.
a way of sharing music because there wasn't any. And actually, I found a really nice little fan group on there because you do need those people that really rooting for you and really like what you're doing. That's really important.
You need more than mom, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
It says, well done, Nathaniel. It's
Yeah.
like, no, I need a little bit more than that.
You need both. I think you need, but it is nice to have people who really.
That's interesting. I never
Study
knew.
that.
I guess I've never really scrolled all the way down your feed, but that would have just been a 2-year-old account.
Yeah, it's really new actually.
That's amazing.
It
And what
started
have you
with
been
this recording? It all
started with the Bach?
With the Bach, yeah. That piece has just been like my whole life for the last 2 years. I can't wait till this concert's done. I can, move on.
A lot of people struggle with social media. Obviously, it just
Yeah.
it's overwhelming. It encompasses their whole entire soul, and then they lose their mental health. How do you manage it?
Yeah, I think you just got to. It's a tool, isn't it? You've got to. I've had times where I've completely come off it. That didn't work either. Actually, I felt quite isolated in that way. I've not been on Facebook for 7 or 8 years. I don't really find I need to be on that. But I think it's just the whole thing is it's hardwired to pull you in and to get that next hit.
Yeah. If you want to delete it, they'll wait for 30 days for you to change your mind.
I know, it's crazy,
Yeah.
isn't it? So yeah, just if you can manage it, and I think there's so many lovely things on there that you can find, such special things. So just use it in the right way, but it's difficult. I've always found it very difficult to do. I always think it's funny there's so many videos all about good mental health on a platform that's encouraging really bad mental health.
Yeah.
It's just, it's like we wouldn't need this if we didn't have that. So but,
Well, that's true. Yeah.
But that's the world we live in. I think there are many positives to it as well.
Yeah, I
But
think if
manage
used
it.
in the right way, we talked about using it as more of a blog or a sharing platform.
Also, that thing about detachment comes back to that. Don't let it be your life. As soon as I do a video, I just close it. I
Yeah.
don't really look at it, and then if I get inspired, I'll do another one.
Yeah, I wish there was a way not to have it on your phone, but of course you
Yeah.
use a lot of your phone camera to record it. But I know that for certain ones that I don't need an iPhone for, I just uninstall that app on my phone, so I can always get back to it in my browser but it's not in my phone. It's not in my pocket every time. That's great. We'll be back just to wrap up our segment with Nathaniel Mander after this. Back on the last segment of Brave Business Conversation with Nathaniel Mander, who will be having a concert, if you can still get tickets, on the 14th of May at Berdelot. Did they just go to Berdelot and try to get a ticket, or can you do it online?
You can also do it online on their website, but just go in and get a ticket.
Yeah, you should absolutely visit Berdelot. You should absolutely visit Margaret's buildings now. Everything is now open and
so nice.
For the first time in many, many years. You in your bio, you had something like you want to inspire future generations with music and everything. What does that mean?
Yeah, I think I've done quite a lot of work with kids, and I just personally I'm aware of that spark that can be ignited in young kids with classical music. So I remember life-changing moments in my life that have been inspired by that as a young child, just listening to something beautiful expressed through someone who's really inspired by it. So anything that can do that, I just feel like it's just the right exposure, the right setting, because otherwise so many of these things in life can just pass you by. Not that you wouldn't,
or it's taught in a boring way.
Yeah,
it would be.
Yeah, I mean a lot of these things aren't really very interestingly expressed. You really can find that. It's very easy to become jaded in the arts if it's not going your way.
Yeah,
and then you're on a complete loser then. So you need to just keep reconnecting with the spirit of it. So yeah, anything that can kind of, I do feel with classical music, you need to be led by the hand to understand it. And if you can get that and someone can do that, it doesn't have to be a big thing, then you're kind of opened into that world. But it's a closed world for a lot of people, and I find that sad. It needn't be.
Why is it closed? Because it's taught the wrong way?
Yeah, and I think there's lots of prejudices around class and classical music and and these kind of things. But my thing is that, the music itself is transcendental of anything. It just touches you.
Well, apparently it's in disco as well, so.
Exactly, it's in disco. Music is just wonderful. I've just devoted my life to it.
Exactly. You teach as well.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit.
Yeah, not too much. What do you teach? Harpsichord or piano?
Yeah.
Okay.
And a little bit of piano. But I perform so much, and I'm a very responsible person, so I don't like to have too many pupils that I can't, do them justice. And also I need to be flexible with things.
Yes.
There's nothing like having to teach a lesson when you need to be practicing.
Would you come to Paris? Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm going to be in Paris now. Yeah. So.
That's going to be so much fun. I mean, I bet you have lots of fun in your travels.
Oh, it's great fun. And the people you meet, and it can be quite glamorous. Someone once said to me, I love the glamour in life. Someone said, being a musician is so unglamorous. So from that day on, I was like, well, I'm going to make sure it is glamorous. I do.
You have on your Instagram, professional dandy.
Yeah, I love
you love dressing
and
up,
style and all of that.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm looking forward to your summer outfits.
Oh, thank you.
Because we've met in the winter, so I've got this little furry hat going on, and all your coat, your long coats. I don't know if you're going to wear some Georgian shorts maybe in the summertime. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see what that looks like. It must be really fun reenacting all that stuff.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
No escape, really.
And your brothers do it, and your siblings do it too. Brothers and sisters do it too.
Oh, music.
Well, no, the Georgian transcending time part.
I think that's my thing, really.
That's your thing.
Yeah. I think they're quite glad for that.
That's great. That's great. It's like, what are you doing for Halloween? Oh, I know exactly what he's going to dress up as. Yeah, I think it's really fun. I remember, so I learned piano, but I wasn't. I remember our piano was on the second floor in a very dark room. So unless we were playing it was kind of like our day playroom. But in the evening, we would all go downstairs and watch TV. And in the evenings, when I had to practice, of course, you can't get better if you don't practice. I had to go up to that little dark playroom and play my piano. And I just hated it. I was 7 at the time, and I didn't last for more than a month or two, a couple of months probably.
Yeah, I bet.
And looking at those notes, and until today I can't read notes, but I can listen and play, but you're not allowed to learn that way because that's like fake learning.
Fake learning. It's funny you should say that, actually, because I think the reason I could practice as a teenager was that I basically would spend my life playing computer games. And I have one of these lovely computer chairs like I'm on now, these swivel chairs. And when the game was loading up, I would just slide over to the piano and practice my
And
scales.
practice.
And then when the game had loaded, I'd go back. So it kept it really fresh.
And back then, it took really long
Yeah,
to
exactly,
wait for the
yeah,
game.
yeah.
You know, I'm booting my
Yeah,
computer. Let's have a cup of tea.
So if it's just there on the side and you're playing and it kind of feels natural.
It
these things are
does.
nice.
It does. It
Yeah.
does. Yeah. But reading music, it was just like we used to call it little bean sprouts. That's what we
Oh,
the
for
notes,
the
the
crotchets
notes,
and things,
the
yeah,
notes and
yeah.
everything. And that's where, even when I started learning to sing and everything, that
Mm.
was always a drawback, right? If you
Mm.
don't read music,
Mm.
it's really difficult for you to understand and do all these kinds of things. Especially I was singing opera at that time.
Definitely,
so
definitely. Not impossible, but definitely
Not
something
impossible.
is
Oh no!
tough.
My trick around it was my teacher, who was a Covent Garden professional. He was from Covent Garden. He used to play with lots of masters and everything like that. And then he moved to Singapore and started a life there. So that's how we met. But he would just play, and I would tape it. I mean, literally tape, click, and then I would practice at home. You know, listening and just coming in at the right times.
Gosh.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be on Covent Garden stage having done that, would you?
No, I would only fool myself that I could even make it
Oh,
to any London stage. Any final sharing that you'd like to talk about yourself, your future projects, anything that we need to know more about you? I think it's been
I
great.
don't know. I just I've loved living in Bath. Actually, I must say, I moved here from London. I'm from the West Country originally.
Why did you move to Bath and not to Gloucester or Cirencester?
It was a nice in-between place because I still spend a lot of time in London. And my family is still in Gloucester. But actually, I moved here because of the architecture.
True.
You know, we're so influenced by our surroundings. And so I have still found that to be true, that, you know, you just walk around and the sense of proportion and the beauty of that. I just find that really inspiring. I just knew I needed something like that to just keep me going.
Yeah, it's well designed as well constructed.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. Although I met an architect recently who told me it was all shambles and that it wasn't actually very well built and it was all done on a shoestring. So you never know with these things. It certainly looks gorgeous. It looks absolutely divine.
I think it's one of the best preserved Georgian or even historical city. I mean, and it's unapologetically Georgian.
I know.
It's not trying to be Tudor plus Georgian, displaying a bit of Roman. No, it's Georgian.
It's so organic,
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's it. It's monotonous, but monotonously
But we're
beautiful.
doing it the same way, yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show.
Great pleasure, Cynthia. I've loved
And
it.
it's been fantastic. It's lovely getting to know you, and also we will continue to get to know each other, nourish that relationship.
Definitely. Thanks for having
That's
me.
really important. Good luck with all your projects.
Thanks so much.